Hi there. Thanks for joining me here on Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, the founder of Bare Bones Yoga and the creator of the Momentum Magic Method, the way to become a confident teacher, one who effortlessly walks around the room, shares clear cues, easily builds sequences, and speaks from your heart, sharing authentically with your students. Here on the podcast, you'll discover new and inspiring ways to share your cues and create your sequences. You'll uncover habits and frameworks all designed to empower you so that you can teach in a way that feels authentic and natural. For some episodes, I'll have a guest, and other episodes I'll share with you on my own, and in each one, you'll always get action steps and takeaways you can apply right away to your teaching. In addition to the podcast, follow me on Instagram and TikTok for daily videos. You'll see a link on both of my profiles, my Stan Store link. Click it and unlock ways you can get the support you need to be the teacher of your dreams. You'll find links to the podcast, my free ebook, and other resources to help you be the best teacher you can be. You'll also find the link to my signature program, the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint Learning Program, and you can see if you qualify to enroll. So with that, let's get on with today's show. Hi there, welcome to Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, and this is episode 373. I'm recording this on October 9th, 2025, and this will go live on October 13th. And sandwiched between today, which is a Thursday, and Monday, which is when this episode goes live, I will be running my first road race in many, many years. And I just wanted to kick off this episode with just sharing just a little bit of this personal story. I have always identified as a runner, not really when I was growing up, but in my early 20s, I got into running. I was actually going through a really tough time in my life, and running to me was like just a way to kind of think through things, and it was sort of my therapy. And it just stuck with me, along with yoga, which I didn't find until later in life. Running has always been like a consistent thread in my life. And over the years, matter of fact, one of the biggest accomplishments I've ever achieved is running two separate marathons here in Massachusetts. I ran the Bay State Marathon 2 times several years ago, as well as the Bay State Half Marathon, and so many 5Ks and 10Ks in different parts of Massachusetts. And I just over the years have sort of changed my relationship with running. And as I've gotten older, I just turned 61. My body doesn't respond as well to running as it used to. I just find it just feels heavier in my body. And even though since I ran that last marathon, which was probably like 7 or 8 years ago, my body's definitely changed. It just doesn't feel as lithe and as, is that a word? Lithe? It just doesn't feel as smooth running as before. I feel like sometimes I'm running and my limbs are like bricks. And I definitely have memories of feeling like I was just running like the wind. It was like effortless. And so over the past couple of years, I've had this sort of struggle as I run to kind of make peace with where I'm at. And one of the things that I guess I have made peace with is the fact that I can't run long distances anymore. I mean, maybe I could if I really, really trained, but it's not as important to me as it was in the past. So I'm happy with my 2 mile, 3 mile, 4 mile, 5 mile runs and a couple, maybe 3 days a week, maybe 4 days a week. And now, of course, the weather here in Boston is getting a little cooler. It's October. And once it gets to be like December and snowy, I pretty much take off the winter. And so this particular road race coming up is the Tufts 10K. And I ran this race many years ago. It runs through the streets of Boston, out on Memorial Drive, and then comes back around and ends in Boston right by the State House, which is pretty much where it starts. And it's an all women's race. There are elite runners at the start. It's really well supported. There's a huge vendor fair at the end in the Boston Common. It's on a holiday weekend. So it's just a really fun race. And when I saw that it was coming up several months ago, I immediately signed up. And so it's Saturday. And like I said, today's Thursday, so it's Saturday. So it's a 10K race. And truth be told, I haven't run 6.1 miles in months. I recently, like 3 or 4 days ago, ran 5 miles and I felt great. Truth be told, I was listening to the new Taylor Swift album the whole time, and that helped. But I just am kind of like, I haven't run 6.2 or 6.1, whatever it is, miles in a long, long time. And I know I can do it. But I'm definitely having some trepidation about this race, and I'm feeling like the competitive part of me come into play. And so today, after I record this episode with you, I'm going to go pick up my race number, and then I'll have that in hand. And then the day of the race, Saturday, I can just hop over to the start and do the race and come home. So race starts at 9. And I'm really nervous. I have not run a road race in so many years, and I just want to go into it with no expectation. I know I'm not going to be fast. I mean, truth be told, I'm probably running like 11-minute miles at this point when I used to run 8-minute miles. Isn't that crazy? But it's really not about the time. It's really about the fun and putting myself out there and doing something competitive and doing something different that I haven't done in a while. So next time I hop on the podcast, I'll let you know how the race went. So for today's episode, um, I'm inspired by a particular conversation I recently had with a yoga teacher, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But for today's episode, what I want to help you do is offer you an opportunity to shift your effort and time to what can make the biggest difference for you as a yoga teacher. And so this is really something that straddles both yoga training and time management, which is a life skill. And what I've found over the years is a lot of yoga teachers, which again are people, so a lot of people that I come into contact with in a variety of different ways, they struggle with time management, and not from any lack of effort on their part. It's just sort of a superpower being able to manage your time well. And it's definitely one of my superpowers, not to say that I do it perfectly and not to say that I don't ever have stress, but I definitely consider myself somebody who is a really good time manager. And that was long before I worked for myself, but certainly once I became an entrepreneur many, many years ago, it became critical that I understood time management, understood how to prioritize things, understood what to let go and what to work on so that I could get the results I wanted. Definitely from a revenue perspective, as well as an exposure perspective, as well as the perspective of building community, helping more yoga teachers. So that's a topic and a skill that I've honed in on over the years in lots of different ways. And yet, when I speak with yoga teachers, it's definitely something that they struggle with. And make no mistake about it, if you can't manage your time well, then it's really hard to become the yoga teacher you want to be. If we even just look at the one issue of creating your sequences, I've had plenty of conversations with teachers who proudly show me all their journals with all their beautiful handwritten sequences in there. But when I start to ask them what kind of time they're spending creating those sequences, they'll say, oh, well, I spend 3 to 4 hours every week prepping for my classes. And from a time management perspective, this is really problematic. But because the messaging in the yoga world is that this is just part of being a yoga teacher, people don't question it. And in fact, people wear it like a badge of honor. I have all these books with all these sequences in them, and I spend all this time every week prepping for my classes. And I bring these journals into my classes and I lay them out on the mat with much attention to detail. And then I teach and I'm doing the sequence and I'm looking at my notes. And all of this can be okay if this is how you want to teach. And if you are okay with spending 3 to 4 hours every week of unpaid time prepping for your classes. But no one says that's how it has to be. But because the subtle messaging in the yoga world is, well, this is what yoga teachers do, which FYI is not true, that's why so many teachers fall into this situation. And from a time management perspective, I would really question if the time one spends doing that thing gets one the results they want when it comes to, do you feel confident as a teacher? Is teaching easy and fun for you? Are you able to teach in the way you want? See, those are really basic questions that we can bump up against the behaviors we have and really start to reveal if the behaviors we have, meaning the tasks we're doing, are even getting us closer to the results we want. Like I could spend all day, every day doing a bunch of busy work, and it's never going to get me closer to helping more yoga teachers. When instead I could do tasks that might be a little harder for me to do, might take more effort, might require I show my face in front of the camera, for instance, on an Instagram Live or a workshop, and I'm going to get much better results with respect to the kinds of results I want. But we can all sort of lull ourselves into this feeling like, I'm doing the right stuff. I'm doing stuff. I have my notes. I'm writing in my journal. I'm reading my anatomy books. But we could end up doing that for our whole life and never get the results we want because we're not focused on the things that are right for us. And this is essentially the heart of time management skills is, are you spending your time on the stuff that actually matters in terms of helping you get the results you want? And that is at the hallmark, at the center, at the core of good time management. That the work you're doing is directly related to the result you want. I mean, if you've ever read Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Effective Living, what's his fundamental concept? Begin with the end in mind. So what is the end in mind? And then create your task list from that. And I know you're probably saying, task list, Karen, is this a corporate podcast? But again, we can call it whatever we want. I'm just maybe using verbiage that's typically reserved for business conversations. But make no mistake about it, when you are a yoga teacher, you are an entrepreneur, you are an independent contractor, you are in charge of how you show up, of what you do, of how you prep, of how you make money, of the opportunities you pursue or don't pursue, or choose not to pursue. And we can look at it through the lens of business as well as through the lens of yoga. So the conversation I had this week was with a yoga teacher who responded to something I wrote on Instagram. What's your biggest challenge right now? And the response that this person sent was, I'm really busy and I feel uninspired. And so when I had a conversation with her on Zoom, she shared all the different sort of things that she had going on, all the different results she wanted, all the different goals she had set. And they were a lot of different things. And of course, like everybody, she has a life, she has kids. She has an overall interest of shifting from teaching on the side to teaching as her primary source of income. So that is an overarching goal that she has. So a lot of what she was doing, in addition to teaching classes, was really building a business and building a business that has a strong online component, like me. So there's a lot of marketing tasks and internet marketing tasks that now become really important to do. But the interesting thing was she was saying, I'm so busy that I'm feeling uninspired. And I want you to imagine, put yourself in her shoes with this feeling like I'm so busy and I'm uninspired, or but I'm uninspired. There's nothing worse than having a whole bunch of stuff to do in your mind, but feeling uninspired while doing it. When you have a really long to-do list, but you feel energized by what you're doing because you know it directly results and connects to the kind of yoga teacher you want to be, you're energized doing those tasks. But when you're doing a bunch of stuff and you're not really sure, is it even moving me closer to being the kind of teacher I want to be, to teaching the way I want? Yeah, it's easy to be uninspired. So on this free call with her, I did some really quick sort of time management kind of, immediate rework. And then when we were done with that, I asked her the critical question, which is, okay, now that we've had this conversation, number one, how do you feel compared to when we first got on the call? And she said, well, no, it was definitely helpful to talk through it with you. I feel definitely less anxious about all the stuff I've got going on. And then the next question I asked her, which I would ask you if we did this exercise together, is I said to her, well, what's the first step you're going to do from this call? What's the first step you're going to do? And she could identify what that was. Because too many coaching calls you'll have in your life with other people, but not me, don't end with that question. And if you get on the phone with a coach of whatever flavor and they don't ask you that question, they're not doing their job. Because it's really easy to give information, but it's an additional component to recognize that when you are coaching somebody, part of your job is to help them hone in on their first step, to take the conversation you had with that person and operationalize it into action. And this is where way too many yoga teachers get sort of sent down a rabbit hole of paying for programs and paying for hours-based programs where they get a whole bunch of information, but not action steps. And then it's just, well, I spent money and I got information, but it really didn't get me any closer to my goal. Not with me. So let's talk about the whole overarching theme of this conversation, which is, what is your focus right now? I could also say or call it, what's your biggest priority right now? And right off the top, I really hope something comes to you. I hope you're not just like, well, I'm teaching my classes. I mean, that's okay. It's just, man, there's so much more when you actually put a stake in the ground and say, here's my focus right now. You're essentially communicating to yourself, hey, we got to shore up our resources here because we have a focus now. And therefore, we've got a list of things that are going to help us get that result. So I'm just going to first ask you that again, and I want you to listen to your intuition and see what comes up. What is your biggest focus right now as a yoga teacher? I mean, honestly, I send that question out to hundreds of teachers. Maybe even you've got my email because you downloaded one of my freebies and then you got the quick response from me. Did you actually know that I send those manually? I type them out. I don't just chat GPT it or automated email it. If you've ever downloaded one of my freebies, I send you a personal email message to thank you for getting it, to ask you, what are you hoping to learn? What's your biggest priority right now? And like nobody ever writes me back. I find this so baffling. People are just so used to getting automated emails that in my experience, they hardly ever respond because they just assume some computer automation sent that out. Yes, when you download one of my freebies, I have an automated email sequence you'll get, but you'll feel that's automated. But when you download one of my freebies, and typically within like a couple of minutes, if not maybe a couple of hours, you get an email back from me. That's me. Did you know that? That's actually me writing you. So I hate to say it, but it really sucks when nobody ever writes you back because you're just talking out into the void. It's like, man, this is such an easy question. And if I downloaded somebody's freebie demonstrating that I was interested in their freebie, therefore looking on some level to improve as a yoga teacher, and then I got an email from that actual person whose freebie I got, I would write them back. I'd be like, hey, Karen, how are you? Thanks so much for writing me. This is what I'm interested in. But that doesn't happen. I don't know. I think email behaviors are really different from person to person. I think a lot of times people just have so many emails that when they get a response back, they just delete it or never read it. I think sometimes, like I said, people assume it's automated. So I digress, but I just wanted to share that with you. And one of the questions I put in those emails, if you've ever gotten one, is what is your focus right now? Because if you're teaching yoga and you have no focus, then what are you doing? What are you doing? Right? Unless you're self-actualized and you feel like you're knocking it out of the park every time you go into the room and you feel confident and empowered, I would think you'd be focusing on something, or you would maybe have that intuitive voice inside you peeking its head up saying, oh man, I really would like to focus on cueing or learning anatomy or fill in the blank. So that's the first question, is to pick your focus. Knowing that, of course, you're just one person. So you can't focus on 8 things at once, but you can focus on one thing, work that to a better place, and then focus on another thing. So let's start there. What is your focus? I'll throw out a couple of ideas. Better, clearer cues, more easily building sequences, understanding the fundamentals of anatomy so I can share it in my cueing and sequencing, having a more confident and empowered mindset when I teach, learning more about yoga philosophy and how to bring that into my classes in a way that feels authentic, creating a yoga business / leaving my job to teach full time / creating an online component of my business. There's so many different permutations under the umbrella of yoga business or other. So you can send me a DM and tell me what your focus is based on that list I just gave you. So once you pick your focus, the next very important step in this order is determine the result you want. So let's say you picked cueing right now. Better, clearer cues is your focus right now. So what result might you want around that focus? So you might say, let's say you and I were on a coaching call, you might say to me, I'd like my cues to be coming from not the script in my head, but spontaneously coming up based on what I see my students need, based on doing the walk and talk. Or you might say, I'd like to share more anatomy in my cues, and I'm just not sure how to do that. So now you're starting to define what is the result that I want. Remember what I shared a second ago from Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. So that's why this has to be the second step, determining the result you want. And yoga teachers don't often frame things in this way. I know you've enrolled in a 200, 300, or 500-hour program without ever asking yourself the question, what result do I want? And you've given somebody thousands of dollars and hours and hours and hours of your free time without a sense of what is the result I even want out of this thing. Now, of course, when you took your 200-hour, the result was I want to be a registered yoga teacher so that I can have an easier time when I go out and look for teaching jobs. So that's a pretty clear result. But if you ever took a 300 or 500-hour teacher training, before you gave that studio your money and your time, what result did you want? And please don't say, I wanted 300 or 500 hours because that's what I believe I need in order to have validity and expert status as a yoga teacher. Because guess what? Your students don't care how many hours of training you have. Hate to break it to you. That is a construct completely created in the yoga world that most consumers of yoga don't even know about. And it's not to say it's not good or bad or whatever. It's just to say, I would hope for you that the result you want in taking any program, including one of mine, is a result that you want, that is not connected to hours, that is connected to actual results. Hours are not result. Hours is just a sidebar of stuff you get when you take an hours-based program. So what is the result you want? So then step 3 is to ask yourself, well, what resource do I need to get this result that relates to my focus? What resource do I need to help me get that result, which relates to the focus I picked as my priority right now? And then step 4 is to create an action plan. Because now you know your focus, now you know the result you want, now you know what resource you need, so now you can create an action plan. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, etc. And then the next thing is to find said resource. So let's say, honestly, I can help you with any one of these things that I listed out. let's say your focus right now is to understand anatomy so you can feel more confident sharing it in your cueing and sequencing. So you're listening to this podcast. If you've listened to more than one, I know you know I'm an expert in anatomy. And one of my offers is to teach you the fundamentals of anatomy so you can share it with confidence in your cues and your sequences. So you don't have to look any further for the resource. I'm the resource. Isn't that like so easy? Now, of course, I'm not the only resource. So go out and do your due diligence. If you follow me on Instagram, I'd be willing to bet you follow other yoga teachers on Instagram who have an anatomy background. So do your research. Find the resource that's going to help you get the result you want. And then the last thing is to start with the first thing on your list. Start with the first thing on your list. Because let me frame it this way. Because when you start with the first thing on your list, now you're building momentum. Because when the first thing on your to-do list is done, your action plan is done, now you can go to the second thing, get that done. Then you can go to the third thing, and now you're well underway in momentum. The magic of momentum. You just have to start with step one. That's it. You don't have to look at it like it's a hill that I can never climb. Just start with step one. Step one leads to step two, etc., etc., etc. So this is sort of your, I guess I'm calling this like a flash of like a let's call it a quick win episode, because it's not going to be too long. It's going to be just the short, compact way to help you get results. And when you get results, you get a quick win. Some results take longer to get, but just the fact that you're still listening to this episode means that you've consumed the bulk of the lesson and you're set up to get a quick win. And that didn't even take more than like 20 minutes. So how about that, right? So as we kind of come to the tail end of our conversation, I want to direct you to a couple of links that I've intentionally put in the show notes. And honestly, when I put links in the show notes, it's with intention. So don't forget, as you're watching, as you're listening on your phone, just pull up the show notes for the episode and click some of these links. Number one, I have a brand new ebook that I just released yesterday called From the Interview Chair, Lessons for Yoga Teachers. And it's a really cool formatted ebook in that it's very different from what you're used to. It's not just an ebook with key lessons for yoga teachers on the topics we talk about all the time. It also comes from podcast interviews I've had this year, and I've been on a whole bunch of yoga teacher podcasts. So in the ebook, you're going to see the episodes and the hot button issues that were discussed in each episode, the conversation highlights with a link to the actual audio episode. So it's really multimedia. You're reading this ebook and then you're getting the link to the episode if you want to take a deeper dive into the topics shown in the highlights. So you can also listen to the conversation. So I love this format that I've created for this. I think it's really rich and full of lessons and just hot topics. And I don't mean hot topics like, oh, what are people wearing? I mean really important topics that often don't get discussed. So when you go through the ebook, and you can get the link in the show notes, if you're reading the highlights and something is triggering for you or something is intriguing for you, by all means, click the link to the audio and listen to the whole episode so you get the full value. So that ebook, the link is in the show notes. The second thing is my videos on Instagram are really going viral in terms of views. People really seem to be connecting to this idea of watching videos that break down different poses into their anatomy. So if you haven't taken a look, you can go look at my Instagram page and just do a deep dive into some of those videos and see what you think. I've actually had a lot of questions come up and a lot of DM conversations with teachers as a result of them watching those videos. So see what you think. Take a look at that. And then the next thing is, last week I shared my goal for October is to help 40 yoga teachers this month. And by help, I mean in one of my programs, the Accelerator program or the Blueprint one-on-one program. And wouldn't you know, since putting out that goal and doing some specific things to connect with more yoga teachers, because remember, it's one thing to manifest in words, it's another thing to manifest in action. And those two things go together. So since the last episode where I shared with you my goal of helping 40 yoga teachers this month of October 2025, and today I've had 5 teachers enroll in the Accelerator program. So the energy I've put out to the universe around this goal of 40 yoga teachers, helping 40 yoga teachers, as well as the literal steps I'm doing, like I am sharing with you literally the results you can get when you use the model I've just shared with you in this episode. I am proof of that. I'm taking my own advice. I'm using my own action plan, and I'm sharing it with you in an effort to help you get the results you want. And in fact, all of the things that I listed out as possible results, you will get when you work with me inside the Accelerator program. So you'll see the link to that program in my show notes here. The Accelerator program is a 4-week program where I will teach you the fundamentals of anatomy and how to share it in your classes. And because you're hearing about this on the podcast, I'm going to give you a discount. So send me a DM on Instagram with the words podcast offer accelerator, and I'll share with you what that is. And you can get started this month in October and be part of the group of 40. Now, just a little sidebar. You'll be part of the group of 40. It's just that the individual sessions will be smaller than that because I'll probably end up having 2 sessions in the month of October. So I don't want you to feel like you're not going to get personalized attention. One of the things you'll get is a bonus one-on-one coaching call with me. So you're definitely going to get personalized attention. So that link to the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator is also in the show notes. So that's it. We're at the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Certainly send me any comments or thoughts that you have in the DMs on my Instagram, Bare Bones Yoga. And I'll chat with you on the next episode next week. Talk soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And hey, one more thing. While I don't know you personally, I know what a yoga teacher looks like who's ready to have a breakthrough to being the kind of yoga teacher who walks around the room, sharing cues you know the reason for, understands anatomy, teaching signature sequences without notes or any need to practice with class, and loves teaching yoga without stress, anxiety, or nervousness. If you are ready to be that yoga teacher, here is your next step. DM me the words podcast offer, and I will give you a special incentive to work with me inside of my signature program just because you are listening to the podcast. DM me on Instagram at Bare Bones Yoga. I can't wait to hear from you.